ठीक है. So, good afternoon, everyone. We back. That is vaginal birth after cesarean delivery is a very interesting topic. There are a lot of apprehensions, and justifiably so, in the minds of the obstetrician as to how does she manage a patient with sorry. So a lot of apprehensions in the mind of the obstetrician when a patient comes to you at the first appointment and she says that she's had a C-section. So does the discharge card have the detail about C-section? What was the indication? What was? No, just a single line, fetal distress, and that's it. So then how do you go into the detail? How do you counsel the patient? When is the time to take a correct decision to the mode of delivery? This and all much. Before that, I have the pleasure of inviting our chairperson, Dr. Sharda Jain, ma'am. Dr. Sharda, ma'am.
This particular topic has been arranged because I felt both as an expert in Delhi Medical Council and later at MCI, we find that litigations are against gynecologists are 50%. This I repeat every time, that the litigations against gynecologists are 50%. And vaginal delivery after cesarean birth is well accepted all over the world. It is said that any person who has had a cesarean section, there is a good 70% chance she can have a vaginal delivery. And the people who are kept for vaginal delivery, at least 70% can deliver. So it is an accepted norm, whether the gynecologists like it or they do not like it. They have to offer to their patients that this is kind of things is available. 1/5 of the litigations are after their vaginal birth after cesarean. Because in today's time, at least in this country, I do not know about any other country, they want mother should be all right 100%. They want baby to be all right 100%. She should just walk away without any additional thing. If you have seen, doctor has said vaginal delivery, it has to be vaginal delivery and no cesarean section, and leave aside things like a ruptured uterus and problems in the baby in terms of fetal death or any neurological deficit. Now, question is, when the litigations are so many, how you will find two people who are here today who are going to tell you what are the best practices you can use in vaginal delivery after cesarean birth. If you falter anywhere, you are taken for granted. As for breech delivery, when I was a student, I was told there's an inherent risk to the baby of 2.5%. कि अगर vaginal delivery दोगे तो भाई 2.5% तो बच्चे जाएंगे ही जाएंगे. Is it accepted to you? धीरे धीरे सबने कहा 0% and this everything became cesarean section. Now similar thing, you got to tell your patients that okay, 70% delivery is possible, but there is an inherent risk that you may require cesarean section. If there's an inherent risk that something can go wrong with the baby, if the baby is alive, sometimes neurological deficit can be there. And mind you, Shakuntala is going to tell, one cesarean section, she has had a vaginal delivery successfully, she comes for another delivery. Because Shakuntala does vaginal delivery after cesarean section, and she lands up in problem. So you have to have the similar precautions, whether she has after one cesarean section, one delivery, two deliveries, or third delivery, precautions are the same. I think with this particular remark, I think you are going to hear the best experts today who जो अपनी आप बीती आपसे साथ share करेंगे. But after the initial presentation by Dr. Neha.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I welcome all the chairpersons. Apparently, Dr. Raj Bukharia, I don't think has joined us. Dr. Raj, are you there, ma'am? Malti, will you please start the slide share? Malti? So Dr. Raj Bokaria, we know, is our past president, Delhi Gynae Forum, senior consultant at Fortis La Femme. Dr. Jyoti Agarwal, she's the present president of our East Delhi Gynae Forum and a wonderful academician, and also the past secretary. She is also a laparoscopic surgeon and IVF specialist. Dr. Ila Gupta, senior consultant at Max Hospitals, past secretary, past president of East Delhi Gynae Forum. Dr. Rupam, so Dr. Rupam is senior consultant OB and Gynae at Max Hospitals and also is the past president of our forum. Dr. Rupam, Dr. Ila, Dr. Raj have all lot of experience vis-a-vis VBAC. Dr. Sujit Kapoor is also senior consultant and director of Kapoor Medical Center, recipient of the APJ Abdul Kalam Appreciation Award and the recently installed Dr. Mamta Oration Award. Dr. Kapoor was specifically taken in because, like I mentioned, those who are working in a tertiary care center maybe find it very easy. How do we manage if you have a small setup but you are a dedicated doctor? And now I request Dr. Ila to please invite Dr. Neha Kapoor.
Thank you, Deepti. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is very, very good topic and very important topic. As Madam said that VBAC is a very important topic, but as we know that VBAC needs a lot of checklists, that it should be like this. There are few points after which we should decide that whether we should go for vaginal or not. But of course, as Madam said that 70% of the patients will deliver vaginally according to the statistics. But when we take one person at one time, we do not know how this is going to turn out. So today I am going to introduce no one but our child, Dr. Neha Kapoor. She is a MD postgraduate and Fellowship of Gynecological Endoscopy has been done by her at Nathkarni. Nathkarni Medical Training Academy, Gujarat, and she is presently working at Kapoor Hospital, and he has keen interest in minimally invasive surgery, preventive oncology, and adolescent gynecology. So she is a quiz master. I think she has succeeded in very many quizzes in past few conferences. So now, Dr. Neha, please present your checklist for the cesarean VBAC deliveries.
Thank you, ma'am, for the kind namaskar to all my seniors. At the very
slide share shuru kare.
Yes, ma'am, I have started. So at the very outset, I would like to thank East Delhi Gynae Forum, especially Dr. Sharda Jain ma'am and Dr. Deepti ma'am for giving me this opportunity to share the screen with such distinguished speakers. Without any further ado, let's get to today's topic, that is antenatal checklist for VBAC. Why there is so much of hullabaloo regarding this? Between 1970 and 2016, cesarean delivery rate in the United States increased from a meager 5% to a colossal 31.9%, which led to increased expenditure of healthcare and also increased maternal morbidity, the most dreaded complication being placenta accreta spectrum. We can see here that as the number of cesarean sections increases, the incidence of placenta accreta spectrum increases from 3% exponentially to 67%. So the investigators began to reconsider the age-old paradigm of once a cesarean, always a cesarean. And the accumulated data since then has supported trial of labor after cesarean as a reasonable approach in select pregnancies. The eminent institutions world over have supported VBAC with their data. Let's see what are the options for a patient with previous cesarean section. Just give me 1 second. The options for a patient with a previous cesarean are ERCS or an elective repeat cesarean section, or she can go for a trial of labor after cesarean or a TOLAC. If a TOLAC is successful, it results in a vaginal birth after cesarean or VBAC. If it is unsuccessful, the patient lands up in an emergency cesarean. Let's go through the guidelines of birth after previous cesarean by RCOG, which was given in October 2015. The antenatal counseling of women with a previous cesarean birth should be documented in the notes. A final decision for mode of birth should be agreed upon by the woman and her care provider before the expected or planned date of delivery, preferably by 36 weeks, and it should be documented. When a date for ERCS is being arranged, a plan for the event of labor starting before the scheduled date should be documented in the notes. The routine use of VBAC checklist during antenatal counseling should be considered, as they would ensure informed consent and shared decision-making in women undergoing VBAC. One such example of the checklist is this. A woman should be told about the likelihood of successful VBAC is 72 to 75%. That is, every 3 out of 4 women will deliver if chosen carefully. And it increases to 85 to 90% if the woman has a history of 1 previous vaginal birth. The likelihood of uterine rupture is 25 times more in case of VBAC as compared to elective repeat cesarean section. But maternal mortality is nearly thrice more in case of repeat cesarean than a VBAC. About the neonatal morbidity, the incidence of transient respiratory morbidity is more in case of ERCS, but hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy is more in case of VBAC. So after discussing all this point-wise with the patient, the care provider should come to a conclusion, considering the patient's choice in mind, whether they want to go for a trial of labor or not, and everything should be documented before 36 weeks. Now, who is an ideal candidate? A woman who comes with a singleton pregnancy, a cephalic presentation, who's 37 weeks or beyond, a single previous lower segment cesarean delivery, with or without history of previous vaginal birth, and she comes in spontaneous labor is the ideal candidate. The absolute contraindications will be previous uterine rupture, which has a 5% higher risk of rupture, a classical or a T-shaped cesarean scar, and other absolute contraindications to vaginal birth like major placenta previa. Caution should be exercised in complicated uterine scar. The decision on case-to-case basis by a senior obstetrician with access to details of previous surgery, like at what gestation age was the surgery conducted, what was the indication of the surgery, at what stage of labor was the cesarean done, what was the closure, how was the closure in a single layer or double layer, and after all this, the clinician can come to a diagnosis whether her candidate is fit for trial of labor or not. Caution should also be exercised in post-dated pregnancy, twin gestation, fetal macrosomia, antepartum stillbirth, and maternal age more than 40 years. We can see here that the low transverse incision has the lowest scar rupture rate of 0.2 to 1.5%. Now, the factors associated with increased incidence of scar rupture are short interdelivery interval, which can be 12 to 18 months is taken as short interdelivery interval. Post-dated pregnancy, maternal age more than 40 years, obesity, a BMI of more than 30, lower pre-labor Bishop score, macrosomia, and a decreased scar thickness of 0.6 to 2 mm is a strong predictive value for scar rupture. What about VBAC in previous to cesarean? It is not contraindicated. We can see here that the success rate are comparable, but the scar rupture and rate of hysterectomy are higher in case of previous to cesarean. There are various tools for predicting the likelihood of successful trial of labor after cesarean delivery. One such tool is available online on the National Institute of Health website. We can just enter the data and it will calculate a predictive success rate of VBAC. Now, where should the delivery be conducted? It should be in a suitably staffed and equipped delivery suite with continuous intrapartum care and monitoring. Resources should be available for immediate cesarean delivery and advanced neonatal resuscitation, and also blood bank facility should be there. Experienced obstetrician to determine the feasibility of VBAC. Epidural analgesia is not contraindicated, but increasing requirement may suggest impending uterine rupture. A continuous electronic fetal monitoring commencing at the onset of regular uterine contractions is a must. There should be a supportive one-to-one care. Intravenous access with full blood count, blood grouping and saving should be ensured. The regular monitoring of maternal symptoms and signs should be done, and no less than 4-hourly assessment of cervicometric progress in labor. Clinicians should look for red flag signs like abnormal CTG, which is the most consistent finding in 66 to 76% of scar dehiscence. severe abdominal pain, especially if persisting between contractions, acute onset scar tenderness, abnormal vaginal bleeding, hematuria, cessation of previously efficient uterine activity, maternal tachycardia, hypotension, fainting or shock, loss of station of the presenting part, and change in the abdominal contour or inability to pick up fetal heart at the old transducer site. 2 to 3-fold increased risk of uterine rupture has been noticed in induced or augmented labor, and 1.5-fold increased risk of cesarean delivery. The mechanical methods are associated with a lower risk of scar rupture compared to prostaglandins. But the Cochrane review says there is insufficient evidence from the RCTs to determine the lowest risk method for induction of labor with a previous cesarean delivery. The ACOG says that misoprostol should not be used. The NICE guidelines on induction of labor, which was published in 2008, suggests that vaginal prostaglandin E2, that is dinoproston gel, can be used with caution. But it has not been updated since then. And this VBAC guideline came in 2015, which recommends use of mechanical methods. What about elective repeat cesarean section? The guidelines recommend that it should not be conducted before 39 weeks. And the rest of the guidelines are same as in case of cesarean done for any other indication. What about preterm VBAC? Preterm VBAC has a similar success rate and a lower incidence of uterine rupture and scar dehiscence. The perinatal outcome could not be compared because preterm babies are definitely more prone for complications. So here we can see the summary. At booking, review of previous medical records and operative notes, assess risk and benefits for TOLAC. At 20 weeks, at the time of anomaly scan, placental localization should be done, and it should be reassessed at 32 to 36 weeks in case of a low-lying placenta. And 36 weeks is the time when we have a decided mode of delivery for the patient. Then we wait from 36 to 41 weeks for the spontaneous onset of VBAC, spontaneous onset of labor for VBAC. And if a repeat cesarean has been decided, then it should be done not before 39 weeks. So this table summarizes our care for a woman with previous cesarean. The ACOG has similar recommendations as RCOG. I could not find any difference. It says 2 additional points, and these are level B recommendations, that women with 1 previous cesarean delivery with a low transverse incision who are otherwise appropriate candidates for twin vaginal delivery are considered candidates for TOLAC, and external cephalic version for breech presentation is not contraindicated in women with a prior low transverse uterine incision who are candidates for ECV and TOLAC. With this, I would like to thank you all for a patient listening. Thank you.
Very good, Neha. It was a wonderful presentation. And I think there must be a lot of questions and experiences bubbling in other people's mind. And what I want to say in this respect, that whenever we can say that twin delivery and breech delivery, external cephalic version, but in our setup in India, we do not know from where she's got the cesarean done. It may be at village or it may be some PSC like hospital, and we do not know what kind of a scar is this. Whether we see the scar on ultrasound, but it is also said it's not very significant that you assess the things according to the scar. But in my practice, I would like to say a few points that whenever patient comes to me of previous cesarean, of course at 35, 36 weeks, I assess the patient. I tell patients 4 things. That if I say that if you want a VBAC or you want a TOLAC, then first of all, you should be knowing the pros and cons of this particular procedure. Secondly, I will assess you by doing the pervaginal examination. I will go for an ultrasound. I will see the scar also. I will see the pelvic assessment, and I will see whether bishop is favorable and head is coming down and things are better. And then I will wait for a spontaneous labor. I do not go for induction usually unless the patient is very, very particular for TOLAC. So these are the, if patient goes post-dated, then of course I do not go for induction of labor. I go for the ERCP. So this is something which I do in my practice, and I think because I also had lost one baby because of this, the patient had a previous vaginal delivery as such. I think I should not waste time in sharing this case. I can share later on, and the other speaker should come on for this.
So actually, Dr. Ila, and after hearing all these guidelines, what I will have to say is that we need to have our own guidelines, keeping in mind the kind of healthcare